Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sports Insider. I am Dan Lobby. He, of course, is Bud Shaw. Chris Fedor is not here today. We have a full show. We're going to talk Cavs. We're going to talk Indians and Browns. We usually have Mary Kay Cabot off the top, but the Cavs are in the playoffs, so we're going to get right to it with the Cavs.
And you know, if we say it's been a record-setting performance, that we're not talking about the Browns.
Yeah, well, that's true. Well, at least a positive record.
There you go.
Chris Haynes joins us via phone. Chris, how are you?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for bumping me up to the headliner.
We do what we can. All right. The Cavaliers, of course, last night break that record, not just the playoff record, but any NBA game with 25 three-pointers in one game. And, you know, you wrote today that some Hawks players were not real thrilled with the Cavs gunning for that record towards the end of the game. There's been some discussion about that. A lot of people saying, well, the Hawks, it's their job to stop the Cavaliers. Do you put much stock in how they feel about the record?
No, and I think I included in my story, them just being so dejected after the game. You could tell they were just emotionally drained and clearly visibly frustrated. That's not like them. Paul Millsap, Al Horford, Ken Bazemore. I think I just caught them at a vulnerable time, honestly. And they said whatever they were thinking at that time. But no, I mean, look at it. The Cavaliers went into the half with 18 threes. Breaking the record was just inevitable. It was just a matter of when, not if. And I don't know what they could have done to slow that down. I don't know what they could have done to appease the Hawks.
I think we might have lost Chris. I think the other part of that equation is what you thought of Barkley's comments.
Yeah, well, obviously Barkley right after the game saying that the Hawks needed to take out a Cavaliers player, and that has, of course, upset fans as well. Although I do wonder how many of those fans were last year calling for Kendrick Perkins to come out and start taking guys out.
Well, yes, but that
we do have Chris back. Chris, sorry we lost you there for a second. I don't know if you want to continue on your point about the Hawks and their comments about the record.
No, I just think it was a little bit out of character for those guys. Those are stand-up individuals, and I just think I just caught them in the heat of the moment at a vulnerable time. But I think it was pretty much that. I did hear you guys bring Charles Barkley into the fold. I will say this: that's obviously that's probably not the right thing to say on while you're on air on a national television show, but definitely those are things, or those are matters that players and coaches talk about behind the scenes. You're never going to hear them come out and say that. I think Charles Barkley is just one of those guys that probably can say whatever he wants to and get away with it right now.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing to me, Chris, is that, basically Barkley's calling for someone on the floor to take the brunt of some physical play at the time in the game when the guys on the floor are basically Mo Williams, Dante Joe. I mean, we're not talking about guys that would really affect a lot of what the Cavs want to accomplish in these playoffs. So unless he's talking about them coming back in Game 3 and going after some of the starters. But either way, I think it's kind of a reckless comment.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why I said, I mentioned, I don't know if I was cut off at that point, but, the Cavaliers did most of the damage in the first half.
Right.
It really didn't matter. The Cavs could have went in there with their second and third unit to start the second half, and that record would have been broken. It's just that was the case. So I don't see, I don't get where the Hawks were coming from, and certainly I don't get where Charles Barkley is coming from. Maybe he did say, he did mention, set the tone for Game 3. So maybe he was talking about, tackling one of the reserve players and maybe getting LeBron James and those guys to think twice in Game 3. I don't know, but it did seem, that logic didn't seem to go with how the Cavaliers played last night.
Chris, as the NBA has transitioned into this jump shooting league, I think for a while a lot of people looked at the Cavaliers still as dinosaurs in regards to all of this, but they've very quietly become a team that has become reliant on the three-point shot and sort of embodied what the Warriors have done, what the Rockets tried to do a few years ago. At what point did you maybe start to notice that this team was relying on the three-pointer more and more?
It was probably, it was definitely when Tyronn Lue took over. They showed glimpse of it when David Blatt was at the helm. But you definitely start seeing a lot more of it when the ball started moving a lot more. The pace was up-tempo pace. And a lot of times, I don't think it happened. I don't think it happened on purpose. A lot of times when you're pushing the pace and playing frantically, you start taking, quick shots. And I know that's what J.R. Smith does. And I think this is just manufactured organically. I asked LeBron about when did he realize this is a jump shooting team or a three-point shooting team. He said, I don't consider us a three-point shooting team. We're a well-balanced team that can do it all. But he didn't want to be labeled in the classes of the Golden States and the Portland Trailblazers, teams that puts up a ton of threes. And I have my own reason why he answered it like that. But there's no doubt about it. When you're shooting this well and shooting this many, that you are a three-point shooting team.
Yeah, Chris, they seem when they're in transition now, you used to think that guys would fill lanes and go to the basket, right, on either side of whoever has the ball. Now it looks like those same guys are finding their spots beyond the arc and waiting to see if it gets kicked out to them. Has Ty Lue ever stated that this is what he wants them to do after taking over?
No, I think, obviously, what all coaches say when everything is going well, they say, hey, we just want to take the open shot. If the shot is there, we'll take it. And I think at the end of the day, if those threes were to cost them, if they're jacking up threes in transition and missing them, obviously I think he will come out and say something, kind of different. But, to answer your, to throw out what my rationale as to why LeBron James doesn't want to, say that this team is a three-point shooting team. Because I think if you label the Cavaliers a three-point shooting team, that automatically takes it out of LeBron James's realm of being, his team, even though it's his team. And let me clarify. LeBron James is not a three-point shooting. He's not a three-point shooter. So if you're labeling the Cavs a three-point shooting team, that means they can run that system without LeBron, which is not the case at all. I think with Golden State, their two best players are three-point shooting machines. And so it's kind of easy to label that because you think of Steph and Clay. But if you think of a three-point shooting team with the Cavs, you won't automatically think about LeBron James. Now, I'm not saying that's a selfish move, but I just think that's a little small reason, my own little personal rationale to why he doesn't want this team labeled a three-point shooting team.
Chris, we saw LeBron make some of his three-point attempts last night. Should Cavs fans be concerned that they won't be able to win a title with his outside shot being in the state that it's in right now? Or can he just do so many other things so well that he doesn't have to really be a jump shooter, let alone a three-point shooter, for them to win a title?
No, but I don't think it's a problem at all. I really do. I believe he had 4 threes last night. If he averages 0.5 threes a game, but he's still distributing, still causing havoc and penetrating, getting other guys open shots, then I think they'll be more than fine. Matthew Dellavedova didn't have a big shooting night last night. Usually he's the best at it is catching and shooting. He's right there with J.R. Smith. And so you would think he'll have 2 or 3, and other guys will fill that void. But no, I mean, a lot of how they get their threes is based off of dribble penetration, the two-man game, pick and roll, whether it's Kyrie Irving or LeBron James. So that's what gets them into those three-point sets. So no, I don't think LeBron James has to shoot at an alarming rate at the three-point line in order for the Cavaliers to be effective.
All right, Chris Haynes, our Cavaliers beat reporter. Chris, thanks for the time.
Anytime, guys. Take care.
Bud, does this thing change at all when it gets to Atlanta?
I don't see it. I mean, I think, though, Atlanta will come out with a lot more energy, just as we saw Oklahoma City do it to San Antonio after the first game. I just don't think that they can win. And just to clarify something, I didn't mean LeBron having to shoot threes for them to win. Yeah. I meant just even his mid-range jumper. In Game 1, I thought they just sat way back off him and just said, if you want to shoot, go shoot. And to his credit, he didn't. He kept looking for teammates who were shooting better. But I don't think I've seen a stretch where even his mid-range jumpers don't look quite right.
All right, let's switch gears and talk Indians. We bring in our Indians beat reporter, Paul Hoynes. Hoynesy, how are you today?
Good, Dan. How you doing?
Doing well. And Hoynesy, I never thought I would say this, but is it possible to get the Detroit Tigers on the Indians' schedule a few more times this season?
That's crazy, isn't it? That lineup still scares me to death, and they're 5-0 against them right now. That's I guess if you look at some back payments are due, I guess.
What is it about the Indians and Tigers this season? Are you noticing anything different from years past?
They've always, the Tigers are predominantly a right-handed hitting lineup. The Indians, their starting pitching is right-handed. No lefties, and they're good starting pitching, and they pitch very well against them. Tomlin has pitched well. Kluber has been lights out 2 times against them. So I think they have an advantage there. It's just that right now, Miguel Cabrera and Victor Martinez are hitting singles instead of homers and doubles and triples. Not too many triples, but homers and doubles, and they're just doing a good job of keeping the guys in front of Martinez and Cabrera off the bases.
Paul, we're not at that 40-game mark yet where everybody says you can tell something about a team. But we have seen this team win some, lose some, hang around 500, get a couple games over, fall a couple games behind. Is this a 500 baseball team in your mind, or are there areas where they can get so much better that Indians fans should have some hope of a contention later in the year?
I think they can get better, Bud. I think the back end of the bullpen can get better. Shaw and Allen have struggled in April. I mean, Shaw is coming out of it. I think Allen, if he's used correctly and used, in safe situations, he's 7 for 7, and you don't overextend him. I think he's going to be okay. But that's a key to me. Those guys have got to settle down and be more consistent. And if you look at their track record, both of them struggled last April and then came around and had good seasons. So, we'll see what happens in May. And I also think, Salazar's got to get straightened out. He's had some good games, some bad games, and when Cody Anderson comes back up Saturday, see if they can get that 4th or 5th, that whole rotation, kind of going in the right direction. I think that's a key. And offensively, they just don't leave a lot of room for error. They don't score a lot of runs. They have to be perfect almost to win a ball game, and I don't know if that's going to change.
Hoynes, I'm glad you brought up that offense, because the last couple of games we've gotten to see, what it can do when, like 1 through 6 is really working, especially when Napoli is working in the middle of that order. We've seen Lindor now with Brantley behind him. We've seen a little success there. I mean, just how much pressure is there on the top of that lineup? Let's say 1 through 6, Santana leading off through, let's say Gomes.
Yeah, I think there's some pressure, but I think it's good pressure. I think Francona has found something with batting Santana at the top of the lineup against certain pitchers. He also got Rajah Davis he can put up there against lefties, I think Brantley looks like he's coming around. I think that's going to make a world of difference because you can bat him third, you can bat him in the cleanup spot. Right now he's hitting mostly cleanup. I think that's really going to solidify that lineup. And once Kipnis has been swinging and missing a lot, but if you compare his starts, this season to others, he's still kind of a little ahead of the curve here. So you wait for him to have one of those months like he's had the last couple of years where he just goes crazy and hits 500 for a month. So I think that's kind of what they're waiting for.
Paul, have you heard anything recently that would change the projections on Carlos Carrasco's return?
Bud, the fact that he's been doing some running out in the outfield, I think that's kind of interesting to me. You know how careful all sports teams are with hamstrings because So I think you're at least looking at a 4-week thing here. They're not going to take any chances, but maybe this guy could progress a little faster than that 4 to 6 week window. But I still think they're going to be very, very cautious here. I really do.
All right, Paul Hoynes, our Indians beat reporter. Hoynesy, thanks for the time.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, the Tiger. What is it? The Tigers. Like I said, can they just play them all the time? It's good to see this team, Minnesota aside, winning games within their division.
Yeah. I think what would give everybody a chance, a reason to sit back and go, oh boy, was just the going in and losing those games to teams that aren't particularly good this year in Minnesota and Philadelphia. But these seasons are so long. I mean, we're going to see these stretches where they win 7 in a row and sweep people and then come back and fall apart.
Yeah, all right, let's go ahead and talk some Browns football now. We bring in our Browns beat reporter, Mary Kay Cabot. Mary Kay, how are you?
I'm doing great, guys. How are you doing?
Doing well. And Mary Kay, it appears, at least based on what he said, that Hugh Jackson really likes Isaiah Crowell and Duke Johnson. Are you surprised by his kind words towards them?
Actually, I was a little bit surprised that they did not add another running back out of their 14 picks. I thought there would be another one in the mix based on the fact that he really, really wants to run the ball early and often this season. They're going to take a lot of pressure off RG3 or whoever the quarterback is. They're going to take some pressure off the defense, try to stay on the field, and run that football. So, yes, I did think that they would add another one. But he really believes in these guys.
Well, Mary Kay, if you've reached the same conclusion I have, I think we can assume now that if Ezekiel Elliott had been sitting there at number 8, that they probably wouldn't have taken him. Correct?
You know what? That is what I am thinking. I'm thinking. It's a little bit hard to decipher because they did say that there was one player that they would have considered, possibly, even moving up a few notches for. Paul DePodesta had mentioned, but I can't imagine that would be Zeke unless they just thought that he was so far and away better than anyone else in this draft at that position that and they had him so high on their board. But I don't know. That kind of again did throw me off because it does sound like they're pretty happy with what they have.
Yeah, I've been thinking the same thing since the draft. Who was that one guy that they really were going to take if he were there? Could it have been Laramie Tunsil?
They had a chance to get him, didn't they?
Oh, that's true. I'm sorry. They did have a chance. Yeah, I forgot how far he fell. But I guess what I was saying is, could it have been him and then they saw the video just like everybody else did?
You know what? That's a great question. We do not know yet, and they're not telling. And we've tried to get that out of them, obviously, and it hasn't come out yet. I'm sure it will at some point, but we don't know. But I'm very, very curious. I mean, was it Joey Bosa? I don't know. I mean, they did go pass rusher pretty high with a couple of other picks. So, maybe it was him. It doesn't sound like it was Zeke now, but again, I really don't know.
All right, a guy that they do have on the roster, Markevius Mingo, they declined that 5th-year option on him. Obviously, Mingo has been a disappointment since they brought him in. He's had injuries. He's struggled when he's been on the field. He's added weight, Mary Kay, but what is your sense as far as how much this team believes in Mingo?
Well, obviously $11.925 million was just no way, shape, or form where they were going to be going with this. It doesn't mean that they've 100% given up on him, but they need to see what his value is when he's back with Ray Horton and when he's given an opportunity to move forward again, and he can see they can see what he can do when he is possibly, rushing the passer with a little bit more weight on him. So, yeah, it'll be one of those years where they'll watch him, and if he can contribute, then they'll keep him around at the right price, but certainly not $12 million a year.
Mary Kay, when you hire a guy and give him a title like Chief of Strategy, people are always going to wonder, what does that encompass? Now that we're a little bit removed from the draft, can you look at something and say that you think X was Paul DePodesta's approach to this draft or contribution to what they did in the draft?
You know what? What I see when I look at Paul DePodesta right now is I see someone who is, as we all know and we've heard so many times, that, you know, he's a brilliant person. But what I feel like is happening with him is that he's really coming up the learning curve and trying to figure out what the NFL is all about, and probably finding out that, you know, that there is a transition phase that you have to go through when you're coming over from baseball. You have to learn the personalities and the people. I mean, think of everything. It's like an avalanche of information coming at him. And I think that this was a draft where he did, you know, a lot of observing and a lot of trying to figure things out as he goes along. And I think he's going to obviously try to get the big picture for the organization, and he will nail it, I believe, because, you know, like I said, I've heard so many good things about him. But I think right now his head is just swimming with so much information. I don't think he necessarily said, hey, we really need to take Corey Coleman in this draft.
Yeah, I didn't mean that as much as whether he set the motor running for the idea of just trading down, that they were going to trade down no matter who was there. It didn't matter if it was Jared Goff, which is, you know, the one guy that we thought that maybe Hugh liked a lot. But I just think I wonder if he's the guy who said this is not, this is going to be a multi-year rebuild, and we can't sit there and take one player at that position.
Well, I think it was, I think Sashi sort of has been driving the bus on that, and I think that Paul is 100%, you know, on board with that. But those kinds of plans were in place, I believe, you know, with Sashi to begin with. So I think it's a combination. I'm sure he's 100% on board with it, as is Andrew Berry. They're all cut from the same, you know, sort of analytics cloth and doing this based on some of the numbers. And I think that, you know, you can see they relied heavily on analytics for a number of these picks, and you could see afterwards that Pro Football Focus, who they've, you know, I think they've probably invested, you know, some significant amount of money into, you know, they praised a lot of these picks. And so I think that, you know, they had really good input from places like that.
When you say they relied on analytics, do you mean by taking the high production players?
Well, I mean by actually utilizing the scouting reports and then numbers reports from places like Pro Football Focus and Football Outsiders. Not necessarily, and I'm sure that goes into the hopper, that they had amazing college production, and I'm sure it spits it out that way that, you know, this guy is going to be really great for you. I'm sure that was one of the main priorities, but just whatever information that they called from these analytics sites and from their own number crunching, I think they relied on all of that very heavily.
All right, Mary Kay, real quick before we let you go, it's been a week now since the draft. What was your favorite Browns pick?
Oh boy, favorite Browns pick. That's a good one. I haven't actually thought about that yet. So many of the picks, I got to tell you, I kept on thinking, wait a minute, they're not picking a quarterback. So, you know, I didn't really necessarily have. I can't honestly say that I have a favorite, because even when they got to 15, although I do think Corey Coleman is going to be very, very good, I still think they should have taken Paxton Lynch there and just given that a shot. I do like the Ogba pick. I'm glad that they stayed there. So let me say for now that I thought Ogba was good, and I think that he'll prove to be a very good pass rusher for them.
All right, that's Mary Kay Cabot, our Browns beat reporter. Thanks for the time, Mary Kay.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, I'm really curious who that guy was.
I am too.
I have a couple guys in mind. Jalen Ramsey, just because, you know, a lot of people viewed him. But I'm curious about DeForest Buckner. If he was maybe a guy that they liked, who was kind of slated to go in that area.
Yeah.
The 49ers took him right before the Browns.
Yeah.
And then the Browns traded that pick. He's a good fit in a 3-4.
Yeah,
I'm curious if he was maybe one
of a pretty good thought.
That guy.
That's a pretty good thought.
All right, well, that'll do it. No spinoffs today.
No, not today.
Thanks to Chris Haynes, Paul Hoynes, and Mary Kay Cabot. He's Bud Shaw. I'm Dan Lobby. Thanks for watching.